Yo, what's good everyone? One Piece chapter 1034 just dropped, and I really enjoyed this chapter. It was a primarily action-focused one, but I thought that it worked really well because the fight had a really strong connective tissue with Sanji's character development that's been happening ever since Whole Cake Island. I thought that the chapter will probably be the end of Sanji Queen's fight because, well, I guess I'll get into that later for, reasons I'll elaborate on later. So you get my full sort of thought process as to why I think this is the case. But overall, if this is the end, personally, I think this is the best fight that Sanji's had because it's felt really just like serious and more rooted in Sanji as a character rather than just having a quirky opponent like Bon Clay or Jabra from Enies Lobby. Although those fights are awesome, they don't really have as much personal Sanji moments like this one is filled with. But before I get into the chapter itself, if you enjoy the video and want more One Piece content in the future, consider supporting the channel. And with that out of the way, let's jump right into the chapter. So this chapter begins with us meeting a familiar face. It's that one lady that Sanji thought he attacked, and we get to see that she's back up and running and she's looking for something called Chuji, which we don't know what it is yet, but we'll get into later. And at the same point, we see that Momonosuke is actually starting to move the flame clouds that Kaido has placed around Onigashima and is really coming into his own as a leader, saying he's going to ensure that the island doesn't fall even if it kills him, which is really awesome for Momonosuke. I'm really liking that he's become so much more confident from Luffy's influence, and it's really great to see. This is the only thing with any other characters in this whole chapter, but I just want to highlight them at the start because this Momo moment is pretty awesome, and I think we'll probably get more of it next chapter. Now we cut back immediately to Sanji's fight with Queen, and something I wanted to just point out immediately is having Queen develop or possess all of the abilities of Sanji's brothers felt so great because this makes it feel as though he's fighting against everything he despises. His family, who had oppressed him and made him feel inferior and not really worthy of being himself, and the idea of these people who treat women like garbage, which his brothers do that as well, but Queen also does that in this chapter. I thought that something really interesting is we get to see Queen use all these abilities to sort of take down Sanji, but Sanji comes back with his own abilities and uses them to break off Queen's arm. Now, why I think him breaking off the arm is really important is because something throughout basically the entirety of this arc is the idea that Queen's abilities could be used to give Frankie a power-up. And now that Queen's arm is broken off and seemingly totally fine, I assume at the end of the fight, if that is this chapter or the start of the next chapter, Sanji is going to take that arm and give it to Frankie. Now, I'm not entirely sure because Queen could probably just turn into its weird snake form that it did few chapters ago, but if not, I think that could be a really great incentive for Frankie to get a power-up. So if that does happen, I'd be personally really excited. Now, cutting back to Queen's abilities, he's also able to become invisible, and this leads us to realizing that Sanji never actually hit this woman. Queen did while he was invisible and blamed it on Sanji, which really got into Sanji's head, which I thought was really cool. I do not understand how people were always like, oh, Sanji's hitting a woman, this is great. No, that's terrible because that goes completely against Sanji's code and him as a character, and it's just really dumb, and I'm so glad that it wasn't him because personally that was something I was very worried about in my opinion. So really glad to see Sanji did not hit a woman. Awesome, very true to his character. And something very important about this woman, she is basically a geisha like Komurasaki was, and she is looking for her pet mouse named Chuji. And something I think is very important is that she's looking for a mouse. This also gave me sort of flashback feelings to Sanji's flashback when it shows him learning how to cook and feeding a mouse, and then Judge dismisses him saying, no, you're so much better than this, why are you doing this? I think this through line of this connective tissue to Sanji's past with Germa throughout the entirety of this chapter is really great. It also gives me feelings of in Whole Cake Island when his brothers were going to attack that one girl because her food wasn't good enough, when in fact it was really, really good, but they were just viewed themselves as so much better than her. And yeah, it just really gave me a lot of memories of Sanji's whole flashback and experiences with Germa in Whole Cake Island. Now, around the end of the chapter, Sanji gives us a rundown on his new abilities and really laid the smackdown on Queen after doing the Sanji classic, which is giving great one-liners. And he threw out a bunch of new attacks, all of them in French, so I'm not even going to bother pronouncing them, but I will say Ifrit Jambe is fire. I'm a Final Fantasy fan, so seeing Ifrit mentioned at all, pretty awesome. And his new flame attacks look super sick, and they have this cool little lightning effect that comes out of them because it's getting so much hotter that it's literally turning into lightning. Awesome. Here is the rundown that Sanji says about all of his new abilities: a sturdy exoskeleton, enhanced strength, and super speed. I'll make use of them all. If I pair the exoskeleton protection with my armament hockey training, my legs should be able to stand flames much hotter than before, which is a reasonable explanation for this power-up. So I think it's really cool, and I'm so glad that Sanji is accepting this part of Germa while also hating his brothers and his dad, because he knows they are just garbage. So we see that Sanji realizes that Queen actually hit Osome and basically tricked him into thinking that he hit her, but in fact Sanji didn't. Sanji didn't break his code. Sanji's still true to who he is, and that's really awesome. And Sanji lays down a bunch of attacks, and he says right at the end, "Get out of my sight, scum," and sends out a final attack that launches Queen way off into the distance. And yeah, this felt a lot like a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fight, in my opinion, where Jotaro or whoever has the punch ghost at this time lays down a huge aura montage and just sends the opponent flying. It really reminded me of that, just because of all the new attacks that Sanji's laying on Queen. And yeah, it just felt really satisfying because Queen is cool. I actually really like Queen as an antagonist, very despicable human being. And seeing that he has all these abilities that Sanji despises and has hated all his life, it felt even better, since he was essentially a through line for Sanji to get sort of some feeling of revenge on his brothers, in my opinion. This sort of vindication, like, no, I'm not Germa, I'm a Vinsmoke, I'm not Germa though, I'm me. And it felt really cool. And overall, if this is the end of the Sanji Queen fight, this is definitely, if not the best fight he's had. Like, genuinely, this had such a great character development sort of moment for Sanji, which a lot of his fights don't have. They usually just have fun moments or power-up moments, but not really character development moments. So this was really enjoyable throughout basically the entirety of it, I'm not gonna lie. Now, I feel like a lot of people are gonna talk about Sanji's more intense flames because they, like I said, have a new sort of lightning bolt aesthetic to it, and I know this is gonna happen immediately when I saw lightning bolts. People are gonna be like, oh yo, Sanji's got advanced Conqueror's Haki because of the lightning bolts. No, that's not what's happening right now, because the advanced Conqueror's Haki lightning bolts are black and Sanji's are white. So I'm not against Sanji having Conquerors at all. I think that would actually be really cool, but I just want to say straight up, this is not that. Now, what I do think it's like is actually something very reminiscent of Avatar: The Last Airbender with Azula. I feel as though that Sanji's flames are just so intense, they're literally turning into lightning, how she was able to use lightning in her final fight with Katara and Zuko. That's how I'm picturing it, in my opinion, but again, not trying to dismiss the idea of Sanji getting Conquerors at all in the story, but just gonna say, I don't think this is that moment. Now, overall, I really enjoyed this chapter. I thought that the action was great, and this is potential for Sanji to learn about Mads more in the following chapters. And possibly, he's going to take Queen's lasers from his broken arm and give them to Frankie. I'm thinking this is the end of the fight, so I'm curious to see if the next chapter, or maybe the next few chapters, will have the end of Zoro and King's fight. Because Zoro got the whole reveal with Enma, maybe this will lead into Zoro getting a sort of power-up as well, now that he could fully, control Enma. I don't know. I think it has a lot of potential, and yeah, that's really all my thoughts on it. I'm very excited to see what comes in the final chapter of 2021, which will be the next chapter, because break next week, final chapter, and then the Christmas break the week after that. So, if you enjoyed this video, consider supporting the channel if you want to see some more One Piece content. I do other stuff as well. I'm doing a Bleach series. JoJo's is out, and I'm a massive JoJo's fan. I'm addicted to Stone Ocean right now, and part 9 will come out eventually. So, that as well. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and have a good one.